for a very long time, it's possible that the acid will eventually break the things down.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what happens, which is why you need that mucus there to make sure that the acid doesn't get any chance to touch the lining.
Okay.
Yeah, so think of the lining more as reinforcement, as protection, and then mucus as reinforcement of that protection. So the mucus gives double protection.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, so with mucus you have double protection. So then the bicarbonate from the pancreatic juice then stops the acid and neutralizes it, so that all the the remainder of the digestive system doesn't get digested. So now we have our chyme. Remember, this valve will open and close, and our chyme comes in there into the duodenum. It's just a semi-solid liquid. And in the duodenum, the first thing that actually happens, oh, I forgot to say we have bile. I need a different color. So we have bile there, remember, from the liver going in, and the pancreatic juice going in from there as well. So we have two things in the duodenum, right? And the first thing that actually happens in the duodenum is that the fats are broken down. And they are broken down by the bile from the liver.
Okay.
Yeah. So the bile from the liver breaks the fats down into small droplets, and that allows the lipase to then start to digest the fats. Does that make sense?
Yes, wait, love.
Yes.
How come the waste is not the color of the food that you ate?
Because obviously when the food gets digested, it ferments as well. We're actually going to get to it in the colon. It gets fermented, and also because the bile, have you ever seen the color of bile? Oh, you're frozen actually. Have you ever seen the color of bile, Joe?
No, I said no.
Oh, you are frozen. So you to me you had an answer. It's more of a dark green color like that, greenish yellow, but quite dark like that. Can you see that green with numbers is quite light, but then that green there is quite dark. So if you were to mix that and that, you get the color of bile. So bile as well changes the color of the food to the color of feces. The bacteria as well in the colon ferments the food, changes it as well, and also because you are breaking down the food, absorbing some of the nutrients, you are left behind with waste, which then you are left behind with waste, and waste is a different color.
Okay.
Yeah. So where were we? Okay, so we break down the fats in the duodenum. Do you want to write that down?
Yeah.
Okay, and then we come into the jejunum. And in the jejunum, mostly we then continue with the digestion. I'm looking to see where I can actually write this. Let's just write it here. Perhaps not in blue, since we've used blue already. And then in the jejunum, we continue breaking down everything. We will break down the fats, we'll break down the protein, and we'll break down the starch. You don't need to remember all of this. Can you see that, or is it too small?
It's a bit too small.
Okay, but do you think you need to see it or not? I probably can move this large intestine a bit. So then we break down number 1, fats. We continue to break down fats into something called fatty. You don't need to remember these words. Do you want me to say them or not?
No, thank you.
Okay. So we break down the fats, we break down the proteins. Like I've already told you, into amino acids, and then we break down the starch or carbohydrates into sugar, which you already know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this happens in the jejunum. Yeah. We need a larger board, clearly. And then after breaking all of this down, we then need to start absorbing it. And this is where all the food and nutrients that you've eaten are absorbed. But remember, we talked about medicine and coffee being absorbed in the stomach. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Yeah. But then now we're absorbing the nutrients that you need. And the absorption happens in the ileum. Let me use a different color. So you absorb all the nutrients. And when we say nutrients, we mean all of that. Our fats, protein, sugar, vitamins, and minerals. So let's remember that in the jejunum we are breaking down and digesting. And now we are absorbing.
Yeah.
Right, so you are clear that we will break down fats in the duodenum.
Yes.
And then we will continue to break down fats, proteins, and starch in the jejunum. And then we will start to absorb everything in terms of our nutrients, all of those, as well as vitamins, and a little bit of water as well, actually. Some water. In the ileum. So the ileum is important for absorption of the food and nutrients. And in order to absorb the ileum, I'll just show you what it quickly, like just a small, it looks something like this. Oh gosh, I unclipped the board somehow. I've never done that before. So it looks something like this, Joe. And then, so this little bit here has all these projections, which are like called finger-like projections. There are so many of them. So it looks like this. Inside. So what do you think that does? If you link it to the stomach, we'll say the stomach had ridges.
Wait, does it allow it to expand?
In a way, it allows it to have an increased space for food to be absorbed. Because if it was just smooth like that, then there wouldn't be enough room for food, to be absorbed quickly. Because all the food, look, if our food, our pasta is sitting there like this, right? It means that you have to wait an incredibly long time for all of that to trickle through. If there were little holes there and there, so that it can get into the body, it means you have to wait an incredibly long time. Does that make sense? But if it's like this, it means, oh, I can't see you, by the way. It means that the pasta can get into all those little spaces there. Does that make sense? And because it can get into those little spaces, then absorption is a bit quicker. So these little projections are called villi, and all they do, they have blood vessels underneath and lymphatic vessels as well. So, oh, I shouldn't have used that color because that color is for the bolus. And lymphatic vessels as well. So, when the pasta goes there, like we have shown there, and it sits there, it then goes through the wall of the small intestine into the blood in the form of your protein and sugars, and the fats go as well from the small intestine into the lymphatic system. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Do you want to explain it in your own words?
So the pasta goes inside finger-like projections.
Yes.
That. And then it's broken. So then the nutrients of the pasta.
Yeah.
So that would be sugar. So the sugar. So it would go through like the finger. It's not really a finger. It's just like
projection. It looks like a finger. Yeah.
So then it would go through. Tiny holes into the blood vessels.
Yeah. And the lymphatic vessels for the fats.
And there's phatic vessels.
Yeah, lymphatic or lymph for the fats.
Really?
Yeah.
Of course, there's more than one vessel.
So can I wrap that out? Are you happy with it being wrapped out, or left for now? Left or wrapped out? Oh, it's
wrapped out.
Okay. So, all of that, guess where it goes to? Do you know?
Pardon?
Do you know where all of that goes once it's absorbed?
Around the body?
Yes, but mostly to the liver. So, all that blood brings in all the nutrients to the liver and it's distributed around the body.
Okay.
Yeah. And also the bile is reabsorbed as well. That's our time actually. The bile is reabsorbed as well. How are you feeling at the moment? Okay. Good. It's only one thumb, not two. Okay. And the bile as well is taken back from the ileum. So the ileum is really important for absorbing everything, really. We should write the bile as well. Ugh. And then from there, if you can imagine that we had a bolus, it came into the stomach and then it was converted into chyme semi-solid. And then it went through with the fats being broken down, everything being broken down, the nutrients now being absorbed. So once we've absorbed the nutrients, we're just left with water.
So I'm guessing that the water is absorbed in the colon.
Yeah, and also salt, sodium and chloride, which is salt. And as well we have fiber, which is undigested material. So all of that. So now our bolus turned into chyme, and now it's turning into, we have fiber left and water and salt. And that comes into the large intestine. And of course, remember there is a valve there.
Yeah.
So again, peristalsis occurs. We open. Stuff starts to come through. And as it's moving along, remember we say this takes hours to days. The fiber doesn't get absorbed. It still remains there. But the water gets absorbed into the body. The salt gets absorbed. Usually the salt goes and the water follows. That's an important concept for you to remember. Do you want to write that down? That water always follows salt, because that is important for your chemistry lessons as well. So the salt is absorbed, then the water follows. So now let's just imagine that we are removing the water, and so now our chyme becomes a little bit more like a bolus once again, because it becomes harder and it's no longer as sluggish as it was when it was in the small intestine. Now it's becoming harder. And it keeps moving, and as it's moving, because it has fiber, microbes that live in the large intestine will eat that fiber, and they will produce vitamins. So you need the microbes, vitamin B and vitamin K. And they'll produce...
What does vitamin K do?
Vitamin K is important for clotting of the blood. You know, say if you injured yourself and you started to bleed, then vitamin K...
And there's a blood clot.
Yes, then yeah. And vitamin K is really important for that process.
Oh.
Yeah. And vitamin B is important for energy. Yeah. And the microbes also, of course, as we know, make gases, which, you know, are...
Just quick question of it. If it's methane, not your head.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I know what it will make.
Okay, fantastic. And now you can see that our pasta, that bowl of pasta that smells so delicious, and actually cause you to say, oh, I really want to eat this pasta. And by the time it's in your colon, it's no longer looking like pasta, it's no longer smelling like pasta. It has been converted because all these processes have happened to it, and all those lovely nutrients have been taken out as well. And now we are just left with fiber and the microbes working on that fiber. And the more that happens, all of this then continues to move down.
Oh.
What?
We're nearly at the end.
Yes. And, obviously as all of that is being taken out and the fiber is remaining, it means that we're getting a more solidified particle, which is the waste, which is poo, obviously. And that's...
said the excretion. Of excretion.
Yeah. And that excretion matter as well, that matter also smells because that bacteria has generated all those gases. And the more that happens, peristalsis will continue to happen. And the rectum is usually empty. Normally, your rectum is empty. But with more peristalsis and colonic movements, the rectum then, eventually, the poo gets into the rectum. So now that's... There you are. Shall we make it a lovely brown color?
No.
Yes.
Then you'll make me feel sick.
Really, Joe? It's not entirely brown. It's green and brown.
That colour looks worse.
Okay, shall we add yellow?
That just looks really...
It doesn't look like anything.
I mean that colour, that's not a very nice colour.
The yellow? Or the entire thing mixed together?
I mean the entire thing mixed together. It looks even worse than the brown of poo.
So do you want to go back to the brown of poo?
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, okay. So now that there is something in the... Oh, you're frozen. Now that there is something in the rectum, do you remember we said the rectum is usually...
empty.
Yes. The only time that the rectum has something in it is before someone has a poo and during having a poo. But otherwise it's usually empty. So when the rectum has something there, there's a message sent to the
brain.
Yes, to say the rectum is full. We need
to excrete.
Yes, the waste need to be excreted.
And isn't at the